So welcome to the next video, why I didn't match ortho. Basically, I'll talk about all the mistakes that I made during away rotations, during my third year of med school, and during interview season. Since it's kind of away rotation season now, I thought this might be helpful. And since this is my second YouTube video, I'm basically already an influencer, so Poppy's going to send me some money, I'm pretty sure, pretty soon. So the first thing that happened that messed up my application was my step 1 and step 2 scores. So I got a 262 on step 1, and every med student, they do better on step 2. In my case, I did 12 points worse on step 2. I got a 250. It was like 67th percentile or something, so I went from like 91st percentile to 67. Definitely a red flag. My program director thought, when you look overall your application, it's still a lack of research that's your biggest deficit, and a 250 is not that bad. From watching videos on YouTube, talking to people, I do think that the step score drop had some negative impact on my application. Probably wasn't the whole reason I didn't match, but it definitely was not a plus, and it was not something that was unnoticed. In my case, the reason I didn't do good on step 2 is not because I didn't prepare, but I just was not going through, I went through a tough time during the weeks preceding step 2, and I didn't bring my A game the day of the test and didn't perform. Plain and simple, I choked. So if you think that getting a 250 or 245 on step 2 is going to get you into ortho, I would think again, because now that step 2 score is even more important because step 1 is pass fail, and everyone is getting 260s, 262s who's applying to ortho. Other big mistake I made was a lack of communication with my co-rotators. So I just went in thinking, not really thinking about that there's co-rotators, that I have to accommodate them, they're going to accommodate me, that we're going to divvy up the OR schedule, that we're going to divvy up which attendings we work with. And there was kind of, in my first away rotation, they just left it up to us to make up the schedule for the OR of who's going where. And I kind of felt shafted by the other rotators, and basically it reached the residents, not from me, but it just made me look bad. And I didn't get an interview from the place where I rotated the first month, even though I spent 4 weeks there, nights, weekends, no interview. Total bummer. Another mistake I made was I really didn't understand the purpose of the away rotation. I thought it was to learn orthopedics, but really I realized later from those who matched, the purpose of an away rotation, the purpose that the med student is in the OR is not to learn anatomy, it's not to learn instruments, it's not to learn how to operate, it's not to volunteer to do things, it's to build rapport with the attendings and the senior level residents. I was focused on having a good relationship, a working relationship, and contributing to the team at the intern level, helping with casting, helping with the floor, and helping in the OR with retraction and all that stuff. But there's always someone to retract. There's a scrub tech, whatever. So if your presence in the OR is only contributing to the actual surgery, the technical part, the labor part, then you're not doing your part to get to know the attendings enough. I wasn't dropping jokes. I didn't know the music they asked me about. I didn't know, some of the things that they talked about. I couldn't relate to them, some of their travels or whatever. So I would study the attendings and get to know them. That's one of the biggest things that I choked on. So another thing I have written down in my notes is I didn't consider fit when I was picking places to rotate. I just rotated at prestigious institutions or places that I thought, wow, this would be such a nice, awesome place to live in. Or wow, their orthopedic service is, robust, high volume, everything that I thought you would want as a rotator and as a resident. But I didn't rotate at places that historically took residents that looked like me or talked like me or came from my background. So I really just didn't fit in. I like almost never fit in except for maybe my fourth away rotation. I kind of picked up on this and I switched it up. I canceled a rotation and picked up another one, and I really had a great experience on my fourth away. But by then it was too late. Letters were already out, and my application was kind of the way it was. Another one, I had touched on this in my first video, so a lack of research. So I had minimal research. I had one paper which was submitted to AAOS, and I had some other stuff that were submitted like online journals that were not related to orthopedics at all. They were related to thoracic lung cancer surgery and things like that. But there's kind of really a big point I want to mention. My first away rotation, there was a guy who had done 1 year of research in joints at Big Shaw Academic Place, and we each had to give presentations at the end of our rotation. He gave a presentation about his research that he published. There was all this new data. And then I soaped, I didn't match. I went to my internal medicine training and I saw him there. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. I literally could not believe it. This dude had spent his whole third year of med school, an extra year of med school doing research. So 5 years, ends up not matching into orthopedics. Couldn't believe it. So just because you have research doesn't mean anything. You have to be the cream of the crop. And then there was a guy at my school, also took a year off, did research. Guess what? Didn't match also. Ended up doing a surgery prelim, reapplying. I don't know what happened to him. And then on the interview trail, and then later I kept meeting people and I'd get their numbers and stuff, and I reached out to them later, and a lot of people who you think would have matched or were just cookie cutter ortho bros or whatever, didn't match. And so I still don't think it's random. I think there's some deficit about them that I didn't pick up on because I'm just a rotator, because I didn't interview them, because I didn't see their scores. I didn't see how they performed in the OR. So I really would caution you, do not think this process is random. There's a coordinator and attending, a team of residents talking about you. They put your picture up, and they talk about every single thing that you did. And it might be random if they like you or not, but overall, your application and your match, it's not random. So the last thing is my interview skills. I didn't do any mock interviews, and I used a headset during my interviews, and I even got a comment like I look like a sports broadcaster, and I didn't have a joke prepared when I was asked, and I didn't know all the up-to-date guidelines of orthopedics. I wasn't ready for pimp questions, even though none of them came, but it still kind of made me a little bit on edge. So I would really do mock interviews, because these people who match, they have, not just good scores, not just great research, not just good letters, but they also have people skills. They have jokes prepared. They've done the research of the attendings. They know who's on the admission board or who's on the interview board. They ask and read between the lines and read the room and things like that. And a lot of people have some advantages that you probably don't know about. One last thing I'll mention is I did this the second time I applied. Well, the first time I had no one reach out to me on my behalf to any programs. I didn't ask anybody. I didn't think anyone would. I just wasn't confident in the rec letters, the people who wrote me letters, and that already starts off as a red flag. But later, when I reached out the second time around, when I reached out to people who had written me letters and I asked them to write me a stronger letter or to reach out on my behalf, they did. And so I wouldn't be afraid to ask someone or to gauge and just frankly ask, would you be willing to support me by a phone call or a letter or an email to this person who's in the same subspecialty as you or in the same field as you or who you did residency with? Once I did that research, I mean, I still ended up not matching into orthopedics, but I think I had a better chance this time around. And I know that that was a mistake that I had made the first time.